Commission for Interfaith and Belief Relations in the Vicariate of East Yogyakarta, and he is also a lecturer at the Faculty of Theology, Sanata Dharma University. So, please welcome Father Joko Lelok.
Word. Today we will have our sessions and that will help us to strengthen our commitment to return to the characteristic of God that already taught by our beloved Pope Francis about the present compassion and gentleness expressed in word, present and bond of friendship, willing to bear the weakness and destitution of this age, tending to wound and healing broken heart with anointing God's oil. Now, let us join me in welcoming our Bishop, Mgr Sunarko. Please, I will introduce you our first speaker, the Most Reverend Bishop Mgr Professor Sunarko. He was a lecturer in Triarkara School of Philosophy in Jakarta before his election as Bishop of the Diocese of Pangkal Pinang. Pangkal Pinang is Sumatra or near Sumatra? Sumatra. In Sumatra and near Sumatra in 2017. He earned his doctorate in theology from University of Freiburg. He is now the first chairman of the Indonesian Bishop Conference and the chairman of the Indonesian Bishop Conference Theological Commission. He is about to present in front of us the presentation entitled Promoting Ecological and Human Fraternity for Synodal Church in Asia Oceania. Without further ado, please, Monsignor, time is yours.
Thank you, Father Joko. Good morning, brothers and sisters. It's last year in Bangkok. There was a meeting for the Asian bishops and also other participants of the Synod in Rome 2023. But we made first our Assembly for Asia, and the document is Asian Continental Assembly on Synodality, and the so-called Bangkok document, FABC 50, Journeying Together as Peoples of Asia. It was also a meeting last year, also in Bangkok, from the bishops from different parts of Asia and Oceania. We celebrated last year 50 years of FABC, Federation of Asian Bishops Conferences. The document called Bangkok document. So the first one is Fratelli Tutti. We will use we can read Fratelli Tutti with the scheme from the Theology of Liberation: see, judge, and act. See refers to the social analysis of reality. Judge point to the theological inspiration from Christian faith sources, and act points to a number of suggestions and concrete action plans in accordance with my expertise, so I will pay more attention to the theological part of the documents. First of all, we will see some numbers from Fratelli Tutti. We find there are some certain trends in our world that hinder the development of universal fraternity. I quote some numbers from Fratelli Tutti, and we will see that in these quotes there are some trends, some keywords that makes difficult to build our fraternity. Number 12, Fratelli Tutti. We are more alone than ever in an increasingly massified world that promotes individual interests and weakens the communitarian dimension of life. Individual interest weakens the communitarian dimensions of life. This is some keywords that makes difficult for to build our fraternity. Indeed, there are markets where individuals become councillors or bystanders. As a rule, the advance of this kind of globalism strengthens the identity of the more powerful who can protect themselves, but it tends to diminish the identity of the weaker and poorer regions, making them more vulnerable and dependent. In this way, political life becomes increasingly fragile in the face of transnational economic powers that operate with the principle of divide and conquer, diminish the identity of the weaker. The other quote from Fratelli Tutti: "Our own days, however, seem to be showing signs of certain regressions. Ancient conflicts, thoughts long buried, are breaking out new, while instances of myopic, extremist, resentful, and aggressive nationalism are on the rise." That is one of the important keywords: aggressive and extreme. In some countries, a concept of popular and national unity, influenced by various ideologies, is creating new forms of selfishness and a loss of the social sense under the guise of defending national interests. This is some other keywords from Fratelli Tutti number 15. The best way to dominate and gain control over people, that is dominant vocabulary. Dominate, gain control over people is to spread despair and discouragement, even under the guise of defending certain values. Today, in many countries, hyperbole, extremism, and polarization have become political tools. Dominate, gain control, extremism. That is other key words from Fratelli Tutti. Employing a strategy of ridicule, suspicion, and relentless criticism in variety of ways, one denies the right of others to exist or to have an opinion. Their share of the truth and their values are rejected. Suspicion, relentless criticism, denying the right of others to exist or even to have an opinion. This is also hindrance to build fraternity. Another strong keywords from Fratelli Tutti: political life no longer has to do with healthy debates about long-term plans to improve people's lives and to advance the common good, but only with slick marketing techniques primarily aimed at discrediting others. In this craven exchange of charge and countercharge, debate degenerates into a permanent state of disagreement and confrontation. Debate generates into a permanent state of disagreement and confrontation. I think we can see in Indonesia, we can see this in various forms of debates, especially broadcast on various television, especially during the campaign period before the general election. The person is not to seek the truth, but to bring down opponents. Anyway, the opponent must be wrong. Amid the fray of conflicting interests, where victory consists in eliminating one's opponents. That is another keyword. Eliminating one's opponents. How is it possible to raise our sights, to recognize our neighbors, or to help those who have fallen along the way? Conflicting interests, eliminating others. A plan that would set great goals for the development of our entire human family nowadays sounds like madness. We are growing ever more distant from one another. while the slow and demanding march towards an increasingly united and just world is suffering a new and dramatic setback. Distant from one another. Number 30 from Fratelli Tutti. In today's world, the sense of belonging to a single human family is fading, and the dream of working together for justice and peace seems an outdated utopia. Fratelli Tutti then next some other extreme. The other one I have mentioned, eliminating the others, aggressive. But on the other extreme, Fratelli speaks about what the so-called globalized indifference. What reigns instead is a cool, comfortable, and globalized indifference, born of deep disillusionment concealed behind a deceptive illusion, thinking that we are all powerful while failing to realize that we are all in the same boat. This illusion, unmindful of the great fraternal values, leads to a sort of cynicism. So on the one side, there are some aggressive attitudes that hinder to build the fraternity. On the other side, another extreme is the so-called indifference, not moved by the suffering of others, or cynicism. Oddly enough, while close and intolerant attitudes towards others are on the rise, distances are otherwise shrinking or disappearing to the point that the right to privacy scarcely exists. Everything has become a kind of spectacle to be examined and inspected, and people's lives are now under constant surveillance. Digital communication wants to bring everything out into open. People's lives are combed over, laid bare, and bandied about, often anonymously. Respect for others disintegrates, and even as we dismiss, ignore, or keep others distant, we can shamelessly peer into every detail of their lives. Digital relationships appear to be social, but it doesn't really build community. On the contrary, it tends to spread individualism that manifests itself in xenophobia and contempt for the weak. Social aggression, it is often said in Fratelli Tutti, finds a special space to be spread through computers and other things. Xenophobia, social aggression. Destructive forms of fanaticism are often found among believers also, including Christians. They can also be caught in a web of verbal abuse via the internet and various forms of the digital communication. Verbal abuse, verbal violence. In Indonesia we call it ujaran kebencian. There are various, there is one side, but once again I say, fanaticism, aggressive, verbal violence. On the other side, there are various ways to pass by keeping in a safe distance. We can run inside, ignore others, or be indifferent to the burden of those who suffer. I think there are these two extremes that hinder us to, or make us difficult to build the fraternity, as we found in Fratelli Tutti. One extreme is the aggressive attitude, also verbal violence against others. On the other side is indifferent to the burden of those who suffer. Keeping a safe distance, run inside, ignore the others. Sometimes we look at those who suffer without coming into contact with them. We watch on television vivid images of them and even talk about them euphemistically and with false tolerance. The abundance of facts and opinions in the noisy media is often an obstacle to dialogue. it is increasingly easy to suspect and denigrate opponents rather than open, respectful dialogue to reach an agreement at a different level. Once again, worse still, this model of communication, which is usually taken from political campaigns, has become so pervasive that it becomes part of everyday conversations. We know that during the campaign, political campaigns before the general election, we see some debate in television, one against the other, to not in order to find the truth, but to eliminate the opponent. It is from the political campaigns, but it has become so pervasive that it becomes part of everyday conversation. Discussions are often manipulated by certain interests. Lack of dialogue means that in the sphere of individual life, people are not concerned with the common good, but with the benefits of power or with how to impose their own ideas. Negotiation is an opportunity for individuals to gain as much benefit as possible and not for the sake of cooperation to achieve the common good. The ability to sit down and listen to others, it is important for co-Francis, ability to sit down and listen to others. Typical of interpersonal encounter is paradigmatic of the welcoming attitude shown by those who transcend narcissism and accept others, caring for them and welcoming them into their life. But today's world is largely a deep world. At times, the frantic pace of the modern world prevents us from listening attentively to what another person is saying. Halfway through, it's an interesting expression, we interrupt him or her and want to contradict what someone has not even finished saying. We lose the capability to listen attentively. We interrupt the people and want to contradict what someone has not even finished saying. So we must not lose our ability to listen. Another thing is individualism does not make us more free, more equal, or more fraternal. Radical individualism is a virus that is very difficult to eradicate because it is cunning. Individualism makes us believe that what we need to strive for is nothing more than achieving our own ambitions. So if we summarize, we will find some keywords once again of things that can become a hindrance for us to build fraternity. On the one side, indifferent, uncaring attitude. We can find some numbers of fraternity. Cynical, intolerant, individualist, xenophobic, aggressive, also verbal violence, aggressive, social aggressive, hateful, religious fanatics, extreme and aggressive nationalism, narrow and cruel, racism, populism, fundamentalism. We find these keywords in the analysis of fraternity. Gender inequality, violence, verbal violence, terrorism, mafia. I myself once again summarize in these two extreme positions that is not good for our fraternity. One extreme is indifference, not caring, cynicism, individualism. The other extreme is aggressive attitude, hatred, and intolerance. But we find also in the fraternity some hope. Pope Francis tell us not to lose our hope in spite of many threats against the fraternity. For example, in number 54, he wrote, in the midst of a pandemic, many people are willing workers, cleaning personnel, transportation workers, volunteers, priests, religious, etc. It is the experience during the pandemic. Many people are willing to help others. This is a sign of hope. Also in number 54, we find Pope Francis reminds us about the awareness that our lives depend on each other. It is also a sign of hope to build fraternity. It is also said that in fraternity number 55, that as humanity we have the deepest longing for the human heart, for fullness, for truth, for goodness, beauty, justice, and love. That is in our heart, our human heart. There is always this kind of longing for fullness, for truth, for goodness, for beauty, justice, and love. That is also a sign of hope for us. This is the first part from Fraternity, the social analysis about the situation, the world situation about the fraternity. The second part is the judge. It's when we find some inspiration from the Christian tradition about the fraternal love and compassion. The most important one in fraternity is, of course, the parable of the Good Samaritan from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, 25 till 37. But we find also different texts from the Bible. For example, from the Job 31:15, we are all creation of one Creator. This is the basis of equality. Or from the Gospel of St. Matthew, I was a stranger and you accepted me. We are called to recognize Christ in those who are excluded. From St. Paul, the letter to the Romans, with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. From the Isaiah, we are called to experience others as our own flesh. God makes the sun shine on the evil and the good. So when you give alms, do not let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. Freely you have received, freely give. We have many texts from the Bible for our inspiration to build the fraternity. But of course, the main source is the parable of the Good Samaritan. We know all. I just summarize. In the narrative of Good Samaritan, we could see that priest and Levi is described as the uncompassionate one. About the priest, it is said that he saw past him, it means the wounded, who fell into the hands of robbers from across the street. And also the Levi saw past him from across the street. So the attitude of indifferent, uncompassionate, one extreme, what I've said before. So people who claim to be believers do not necessarily act or automatically act in accordance with God's teachings. Nevertheless, they feel sometimes closer to God and better than others. What we can learn from the Good Samaritan is this different kind of attitudes to build a fraternity, seeing, moved by or with compassion. So it is not a contradiction with the indifferent. Went to him, poured oil and wine on him, bound up his wounds, put him on his own donkey, took him to an inn and looked after him, handed 2 denarii to the innkeeper, asked for his help, will pay if it is less. The key words I think here is move with compassion. We know all that compassion, misericordia, is the keyword also from Pope Francis. Compassion from compassio, meaning suffering together, moved by the suffering of others. Beautiful word also, beautiful meaning of misericordia, from the Latin misere and cordia, heart for the suffering. It is, I think, the key words from the parable of Good Samaritan, compassion and misericordia. Another text is also seen in the Fratelli Tutti, for example, from Matthew chapter 5. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and then remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Worship of God is not worth doing if others are neglected. When people have no compassion for others, then there is no fraternity. That is from Fratelli Tutti, but I also want to see one text from the Bangkok document, FABC 50, about this topic. We find from number 110, it is said like this. There is another word for fraternity, I think. Becoming bridges and bridge builders is the image that best describes the mission of the Church of Asia and the good news that we bring to our peoples and the rest of the world. That is one of the key words during the meeting FABC 50 about the mission of the Church in Asia, becoming bridges and bridge builders. I would like also to remind you, you know all, I think, the Vita Consecrata, that is an apostolic exhortation of Pope John Paul II on consecrated life for religious people. There are some articles there, I think, that is important for our topic about the fraternity. For example, from number 51 from Vita Consecrata, the Church entrusts to communities of consecrated life the special task of spreading the spirituality of communion. First in their internal life, then in the ecclesiastical congregation, even beyond its borders, by opening or continuing dialogue in love, especially as the world today is disintegrating, divided due to intertribal hatred or senseless violence. The Church entrusts the communities of consecrated life to spread task of spreading the spirituality of communion. But Vita Consecrata 51. These communities of consecrated life where members of different ages, languages, and cultures meet each other as brothers and sisters indicate that dialogue is always possible and that communion can reconcile differences into harmony. Still from the Consecrata, Vita Consecrata, in the consecrated life, men and women, members of the consecrated life, were sent through the testimony of their lives to proclaim the value of Christian brotherhood, of course sisterhood, and the power of the good news that can bring about change. The gospel makes it possible to view all people as sons and daughters of God and inspire self-giving love towards everyone, especially the least among others. Also, this is one of the special mission of the consecrated life, members of the consecrated life. These communities of different kind of consecrated life are places of hope and discovery of the values of the Beatitudes. Their love draws strength from prayer, is a source of fellowship, and is intended to be a pattern of life and source of joy. In this era marked by the globalization of problems and the return of the idols of nationalism, international congregations of consecrated life are especially called upon to uphold and bear witness to the awareness of communion between nations, tribes, and cultures. Yeah, I think we have enough sources from the Christian tradition to get inspiration to build the fraternity among us and in the world. The third part from Fratelli Tutti is ACT, call to action, building brotherhood, sisterhood, and social friendship. Of course, there are many, proposal there at the personal level, cultural level, and political level. I want to quote some, according to me, important part of this kind of proposal for building the fraternity. At the personal level, in the fraternity number 170, the call for universal brotherhood touches the deepest depths of our hearts. Universal awareness and mutual care for one another recognizes the rights of all humans, all those born elsewhere. Violence has never been our basic religious belief. Almighty God does not need to be defended by anyone. I think this is developed in Asia, where we find some violence because of different religions. He does not want his name to be used to carry out acts of terror against others. This is one proposal at the personal level. We are invited to remember that our God does not need to be defended by anyone. At the cultural level, the two keywords I think is culture of dialogue and encounter. Dialogue, I think, or as I said in the fraternity, is an elegant option between these two kind of extremes I've mentioned before. In fraternity also said 199, dialogue is an elegant option between selfish indifference, one extreme, and violent protest, the other extreme, or aggressive attitude. So we are invited to develop the culture of dialogue. It means approaching, talking, listening, looking, getting to know and understanding each other, finding common ground, willing to give and receive while remaining open to the truth, respecting other people's views, admitting the possibility of truth in the other party, open and frank in discussions, looking for common ground, working together. Is this some illustration about the culture of dialogue, which is very important to build the fraternity? Approaching, talking, listening, looking, getting to know, etc. An atmosphere should be created where misunderstanding can be overcome and conflicts resolved well. A friendly attitude is something that needs to be cultivated or strived for. The second one is the culture of encounter. The illustration is like this: overcoming differences and separation, looking for ways to embrace those on the edge, periphery, these views that are not understood by those at the center of power. Culture of encounter may be deeper than dialect, because we are invited to overcome the differences and separation that is we find in our real life. There will always be some differences and separation among the different groups of people. So we have to cultivate the culture of encounter, overcome the difference and separation, and always to look for ways to embrace those on the edge and the periphery, those have views that are not understood by those at the center of power. Culture of encounter means that we are invited to have a passion for meeting others, seeking common grounds. Always, the priority is seeking common grounds. Building bridges, one again, as also the bishop from the Bishop Conference, FABC. Building bridges, planning projects that encompass all. Nor should the responsibility be ignored, it must become a lifestyle. The noble dignity of the human person and respect for the common good need to be placed at the center of political, social, and economic activity. Culture of dialogue and culture of encounter. I think it is, according to me, important insights of inspiration from the fraternity. I would add also from the ASEAN Continental Assembly on Synodality, maybe that is more relevant for us, especially in Asia. Once again, the keywords of peace building. In number 109, it is said like this: even though there is a diversity of religions across Asia, there are also growing religious conflicts and even persecution, subtle or direct, in some areas, not in all, but in some areas. The worsening of the cultural violence across Asia, partly due to the lack of recourse to a functioning justice system, is also unsettling. The politicization of religions has made it difficult to practice the faith of minorities. Among the challenges include political oppression, dictatorial governments, corruption, and unjust law. It is what the Synod of Asian Bishop Conference said about the situation in Asia. Not in all countries, but in some countries we shall still find this kind of politicization of religions that makes it difficult to practice the faith, especially of minorities. In countries where there are internal conflicts due to oppressive and dictatorial regimes, the Church must play an integral role in the work of peace building and conflict resolution. Another keywords from the Synod of Asia: peace building and conflict resolution. Among the many other roles of the Church, the peace and harmony of all citizens must be among its pastoral priorities. Building fraternity means peace building and conflict resolution. Working towards peace and reconciliation could be among the new forms of evangelization. Apart from seeing the Church as a tent of inclusivity, that is also important, the Church once again must also be a bridge builder in the works of peace and reconciliation. We find that also in the document of the Synod of Asian Bishop Conference, some articles about the women. There is also a deep concern on the lack of sufficient inclusion of women in governance and decision-making process in the Church. Women in consecrated life, despite being committed to the various ministries of the Church, experience a sense of alienation and whose voices are not often heard sufficiently in the policy decisions of the Church. I don't know, it's right for us or not for you all here. Yes or no? Yes. I hope no. But it is said in the document of the Synod of the Bishop of FABC. The Synodal conversation have called for a rethinking of women's participation in the life of the Church, given that women played an important role in the Bible. There is a need in the Church for a renewal of governance structures that will allow the meaningful participation of women in all aspects of the Church. In many of the churches of Asia, the participation of women in the everyday life of the Church is significant. Of course, it is true, you will say yes to that. However, there is a lack of the presence of women in leadership roles. In some societies, their voices are hardly heard. Some attribute this to the cultural differences and the traditional patriarchal structure of Asian societies. In some places, women in leadership roles are not very welcome due to their cultural mindset. I hope that is not true for you. It would seem that men make decisions or lead the group and the women simply implement the decisions. Is this a strong expression, yeah? But only seem, yeah? It would seem that men, but maybe also in the reality, men make decisions or lead the group and the women simply implement the decision. Is right or wrong? In some cases, maybe, yeah? In other cases, the woman make decisions but what is written in the document is like this. However, some countries report that the men are not in the church, and in the circumstances it is the women who take on leadership roles effectively. Also true, yeah? In some remote peoples. So one against, according to me, the two main challenges to build human fraternity is once again one extreme is indifference, cynicism, individualism, and the other extreme is aggressive, hatred, intolerance. So challenge for you, for the leaders, I think clear to improve the quality of the human fraternity, solidarity and care in real acts of love, but maybe also assistance in finding the meaning of suffering. Maybe it's more contemplative, reflective moments to mourning with those who suffer, who don't see how to solve the problem. Maybe there is also a challenge for us how to assist them in finding the meaning of suffering. Yeah, this is from fraternity. The second one is from Laudato Si. We follow the same path from see, judge, and act. I think we'll only brief about the sea. We know all about the situation of the ecological situation. Yeah. There are pollution in the blood of the sea, climate change, water problem, loss of biodiversity, decreasing quality of human life, social decline, global inequality, weak responses, diversity of opinion, etc. The more important, I think, is to see the theological inspiration from our Christian tradition. In the Laudato Si, because we have to acknowledge, I think, that in the Christian Catholic Church, but also in the theology, Christology also, is too anthropocentric. A long time. Yeah, so in the Laudato Si, we will find some texts from the Bible that tell us that the Bible narrative speaks not only about God and man, but also other creators. Laudato Si number 65. After creating man and woman, God saw everything he had made, and it was very good. Every human being was created out of love in the image and likeness of God. This statement shows the high dignity of every human person. The creation stories in the book of Genesis show that human life is based on three basic relationships. Relations with God, with each other, and with the earth, on the one side. But according to the Bible also, these three important relationships have been damaged. Harmony between the Creator, humans, and all creation is destroyed because we think we can take God's place and refuse to recognize ourselves as limited creators. So we must firmly reject the idea that our creation in God's image and mission to conquer the earth justifies absolute domination over other creatures. The Bible text invites us to cultivate and care for the garden of the world. So each community can take from the earth's goods what it needs to survive, but it also has an obligation to protect the earth. I add some quotes from the Bible that will show us that the narrative of the Bible speaks not only about God and man and humanity, but also about the other creators. For example, from the Deuteronomy chapter 22. If you see your fellow Israelites donkey or ox fallen on the road, do not ignore it. Have the honor, of course. Get it to its feet. If you came across a bird's nest beside the road, either in a tree or on the ground, and the mother is sitting on the young or on the eggs, do not take the mother with the young. It is about the birds. Yeah? Another text, Genesis. See, I am standing beside the spring. If a young woman comes out to draw water, and I say to her, please let me drink a little water from your jar. And she says to me, drink, and I will draw water for your camels too. Yeah? Not only for the young woman, but also for the camels. You have to give the water. let her be the one the Lord has chosen for my master's son. Also, the narrative of the Bible about the Sabbath, I think it is clear for us that it reminds us to give our attention also for the Creator. On the seventh day, God rested from all His work. He commanded Israel to observe every 7 day as a day of rest, the Sabbath. Sabbath day. But also Sabbath year, we know also. In that year, the land was completely laid to rest. People do not sow and only reap what is necessary to survive along with their entire household. That is the regulation about the Sabbath year. It is something to do with our attitude to the nature. Once again, about the year of Jubilee, it is said like this in Leviticus. And you shall hallow the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and you shall return every man unto his possession, and you shall return every man unto his family. All these are efforts to ensure balance and justice in relationship with fellow humans and with the land they live and work on. All this is a recognition that the gift of the land with its fruits belongs to everyone. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the fair yields of your field or gather the gleaning of your harvest. Do not go over your vineyard, leave them for the poor and the foreigners. Another text. There are still some other texts in the Land of the Sea from the Psalm. Yeah? We can say, summarizing, in the Bible, the God who liberates and saves is the same God who created the universe, and these two types of divine actions are closely related and inseparable. Lord God, indeed, it is you who created the heavens and the earth. Nothing is impossible for you. You have brought your people Israel out of the land of Egypt. So God who created and God who saved us is the same God. More important, I think, the Christology. Our theology about Jesus Christ is long time very anthropocentric. We can also find anthropocentrism in our Christology. If we ask why or what did the Son of God come to the world for, we will find the answer in our catechism: to save humanity, to atone for human sins. It is always about the humanity. So centered on humans. The rest of creation receives less attention in our Christology. But we are happy that we find another text, especially I think the text from the Colossians of St. Paul, who that teaches us that it should not be anthropocentrism in Christology also. The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in Him all things were created, not only man. Things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authority. All things are created. All things have been created through Him and for Him. He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. Creation, about the creation, all things, not only man and woman, are created in Him, in Christ, but also for the salvation. And He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything He might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all His fullness to dwell in Him, and through Him to reconcile to Himself all things, not only men and women, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through His blood shed on the cross. We always say that Jesus died on the cross to save us, human. But St. Paul said in the letter to the Colossians that all things were created, but also he reconciled to himself all things. Another thing from the Ephesians chapter 1, it is about the eschatology, about the future of us all. He made known to us the mystery of his will according to his good pleasure, which he purposed in Christ to be put into effect when the times reach their fulfillment, to bring unity to all things once again, in heaven and on earth under Christ. To bring unity to all things again, for the eschatology. So Laudato Si also reminds us of these important things: correlation and consistency in our concern for humans on the one hand, and for other created beings on the other hand. We should not ignore either of them together. Concern for human and concern for other creatures. A deep sense of unity with other creatures and nature cannot possibly become real if at the same time our hearts are not filled with tenderness, compassion and concern for our fellow humans. This inconsistency is dangerous. So, concern for human and concern for other creation has to go together. This inconsistency is seen in those who, on the one side, fight against the trade in endangered animals, but do not care in the slightest about human trafficking, do not care about the poor, or insist on destroying other undesirable humans. On the one side, fight against the trade in endangered animals, but do not care in the slightest about human trafficking. This jeopardizes the meaning of our fight for the environment. On the other hand, it is also true that indifference, once again one extreme, or cruelty towards other creatures in the world will sooner or later affect also our treatment of other humans. Once again, one extreme is indifference, the other extreme is aggressive attitude for cruelty. Indifference, cruelty towards other creatures will also affect sooner or later our treatment of other humans. We have only one heart, and the same misfortunes that lead us to violence against animals will soon manifest themselves also in our relationship with our fellow humans. There is some inspiration, I think, from our Christian tradition. In the Laudato Si also we find some proposal to act. I quote some of them. I think you have practiced many things in this area. For example, number 204. When people become self-centered and sucked up in their own thoughts, their greed increase. The emptier people's hearts are, the greater the need for things to buy, own, and consume. So our concern cannot be limited merely to the threat of extreme weather events, but must also extend to the catastrophic consequences of social unrest. Obsession with the consumerist lifestyle can only lead to violence and mutual destruction. A change in lifestyle could bring healthy pressure to bear on those who wield political, economical, and social power. This is what consumer movements accomplish by boycotting certain products. They prove successful in changing the way businesses operate, forcing them to consider the environmental footprint and their patterns of production. When social pressure affects their earnings, businesses clearly have to find ways to produce differently. This shows us the great need for a sense of social responsibility on the part of consumers. So, purchasing is always also a moral and not simply economic act. Today, The issue of environmental degradation challenges us to examine our lifestyles. The first proposal from Bangladesh is to examine our lifestyle. There is a nobility in the duty to care for creation through little daily actions. And it is wonderful how education can bring about real changes in lifestyle. I think it is an area where you have done many things. Ecology through little daily action. Education in environmental responsibility can encourage ways of acting which directly and significantly affect the world around us. All of this reflect a generous and worthy creativity which bring us the best in human beings. Reusing something instead of immediately discarding it, etc. Yeah? You know all this. When done for the right reasons, can be an act of love which expresses our own dignity. The relationship between a good aesthetic education and the maintenance of healthy environment cannot be overlooked. By learning to see and appreciate beauty, we learn to reject self-interested pragmatism. If someone has not learned to stop and admire something beautiful, we should not be surprised if he or she treats everything as an object to be used and abused without scruple. External deserts in the world are growing because the internal deserts have become so much. For this reason, the ecological crisis is also a summons to promote interior conversion. It is not an optional or a secondary aspect of our Christian experience. Living our vocation to be protectors of God's handwork is essential to the life of churches. Yeah. It is also proposed in the Synod of Asia Bishops' Conference. Ecological crisis always has an impact on vulnerable communities, and the Asian continent is one of the places where the impact of climate change is alarming. Asian responses did not sufficiently capture the intensity of the ecological crisis in these cases. Yeah. I think it's the same thing, to protect the Mother Earth, etc. I come to the closing statement. I remember a strong words from Pope Francis during the year of consecrated life 2015. He told to the religious at that time to wake up the world. He said, wake up the world. It is to you all, to us all, yeah, the religious. At the year of the consecrated life 2015. Wake up the world. Bear witness to distinctive and different ways of acting and living. Show that in this world there is a possibility to live differently. What I want from you is to bear witness, give a special testimony. To wake up the world. There are 3 ways to wake up the world. The first one, rejoice. Show everyone that you follow Christ and live His gospel by filling your heart with joy. Pass this joy on to those near you. To wake up the world, the religious people have to be rejoiced. The second one, be man and woman of fellowship. Firmly rooted in personal communion with God, become a tireless builder of brotherhood, sisterhood. Religious men and women, as well as all members of consecrated families, are called to be experts in brotherly love. And third one, if you want to wake up the world, be brave. Those who fall in love with God know how to trust Him completely, just as your founders did. With the power of the Holy Spirit in you, go out into the streets of the world and demonstrate the renewing power of the gospel, which is also doing amazing things today. I also, Pope Francis, expect from you what I ask of all members of the Church, to get out of oneself, go out into the spaces of the existential periphery. Don't close yourself off. Don't get caught up in arguments about trivial issues. Don't let yourself be held captive by your own problems. I ask you to work concretely by accepting refugees, being close to those who are poor, finding creative ways to teach the faith, preach the gospel, and teach others how to pray. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monsignor, for the explanation. We had like 114 pages. Wow, and we learned a lot from the pages. Thank you very much. And what I learned from this study, totally this is a new way of reading these two articles. We learned from the way of liberation theology, way of doing theology. What's it? See, judge, and act. It is not only living, understanding the reality of today's society, but we need to have judge. The one that I learned from the explanation is about judge, is about how do we could have inspiration from the teaching of the church and the spirituality of the Catholic. And finally, we do something act. In Indonesia, we call it as jika kita tahu realita, yuk ngopo itu bahasa Jawa. In Indonesia, what can we do if we know the reality? We understand the reality. We need to do something for better things. And Monsignor help us with, if you want to do something, act something in a personal, cultural, and political love, and we can do something for it. And we still have like 30 minutes and up to 40 minutes for our discussion, and I give you time for question and answer. We have one session first, and if we still have time, then we can go to another session. For the first session, we give you for 3 people to ask a question, if any. Please. Yeah. Sister, please mention name and also congregation and nationality. If you are Indonesian, Anda bisa, kalau dari Indonesia, bisa bertanya dalam bahasa Indonesia, nanti saya akan membantu menerjemahkan. Yes, sister and second, please.
Thank you, Father, for the time. I try to speak in English, but we just try to correct it. First of all, I would like to appreciate you, Most Reverend Bishop Sunarko, for your knowledge and experiences that have provided us with a wealth of information and inspiration. It is really touch and is moving for today's world. When I'm talking about fraternity, means I'm talking about myself or ourselves. Why? Because it happened in me, in us, is about us and within. One word that it is also as a reminder for us. So I was touched with one of the key words written. Awareness that our lives depend on each other. So that is a beautiful word, and I want to know more about this, because for me it is a big challenge to build our brotherhood or sisterhood, to make us peace, whether peace in my heart, in our heart, or peace in the world. So my question, is there any hope to build a bridge that peace and living harmony can be flourished in today's world. After hearing all these things that Monsignor has explained in a different way how to become a good Samaritan, in other way there are also way how to reject and this time or something can be abused others. Thank you. Oh yes, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Sister Cecilia, belongs to SJNG. I'm an Indonesian. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister. Please, the second and the third. Okay.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to hear your presentation, Mgr Sunarko. You really cut the important things from the two documents of Pope Francis. And in my mind come to see the Laudato Si number 91. A deep sense of unity with other creatures and nature cannot possibly become a real if at the same time our hearts are not filled with tenderness, compassion, and concern for our fellow humans. This quotation gives me the insight also. Remember our mass closing this morning. Father Hulu, Father Sunu, Father, invite us to be true prophet. And the sign of indication true prophet is we have love. And this morning through your presentation, we can pick up the message. We are not possible to love if we are not love to pray. Because the source of our love is prayer. Bishop, my question to you, to make these all things, the beautiful message comes through in our life, especially comes to my mind. I think we need to start in our life, in our family life. And for us religious, of course, in our community life. So Bishop, please help us to give some way how to do the best way to promote, to create bridge in the community life. So what we feel, love in our community, we believe we can share also outside our community. Thank you very much. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself.
Your name?
I am Sister Caroline, member of Sisters of Charity of Jesus and Mary, Mother of Good Support from North Sumatra. Thank you.
And third?
Thank you, Father. I am Mara Johanna SSPS. Missionary sisters, servants of the Holy Spirit from Ruteng province. Thank you for the really inspiring inputs from their Bishop Ardi. It's really deepened, at least for me personally, deepens my understanding and widened my view upon the two documents, important documents, fraternity, human fraternity, and Laudato Si. So you are really a Franciscan, the way you experience really at least challenge me to put into action. In one point, you mentioned that the reality of Asia is diverse of religions, and yet there are harmony and also unity. But in another reality, there are also continuing fightings, if I can say, that brings to the action of at least of more brings us to the situation of fighting and disharmony of life. So, it caused by the fanatism which are often found among the believers. So, as the expert person, I would like you to give us more. What are the reasons behind of this great tendency of fanatism? Yes, on the other hand, the governments and the Church of Asia and Oceania has facilitated more of efforts for the harmony and peace. But yet, in other sides, that there are seems continuing of this tendency of fanatism.
Yeah.
So,
Ina?
thank you.
Thank you, Sister. Continue with your answer.
Thank you very much. I'm not expert in all these things. But I try to give some answer to the questions. The first one is about the good things of the awareness of our life, that our life depends one another. I think there is a simple things in our life, but in the Fratelli Tutti, Pope Francis mentioned it, that because of the pandemic, COVID pandemic, this awareness is growing. As I said, from Fraternity number 54, in the midst of a pandemic, many people are willing to help others even though their own lives are threatened. Doctors, nurses, supermarket workers, cleaning personnel, transportation workers, volunteers, priests, religious, etc. It is something, I think in Indonesia, in some different part of our country, in villages, something simple. We can understand it daily in our life. We need others to live together. What I mentioned from the Fratelli Tutti, what we can learn from Fratelli Tutti is that Pope Francis is happy that this awareness is growing, and one of the factors is because of the pandemic. We hope that we can learn from this pandemic, COVID-19, this important thing, this important awareness become the part of our normal life again. We are invited not to forget this very basic and simple truth about our life. The social aspect, the social dimension of our life, which is something very basic in our life. That is for the first question. The second one is the relationship about the concern to the humanity, man and woman, and concern to the other creatures and animals. That is also important, what we can learn from Laudato Si, because there are relationships about from God, man, and other creatures. It is said very strong in the Laudato Si. I think in number I forgot 91. Correlation and consistency in our concern for humans on the one hand, and for other created beings on the other hand. We should ignore either of them. A deep sense of unity with other creatures and nature cannot possibly become real if at the same time of the heart filled with tenderness, compassion, and concern for our fellow humans. I think Pope Francis gives a very good, very interesting example about the inconsistency about these two kind of concerns. For example, he said the inconsistency is seen in those who, on the one side, fight against the threat in endangered animals, also concern for the other created animals, but indifferent about the human trafficking or the abortion. In other text, he mentioned about this. This is something strange, and we also see that the negative aspect of ecological crisis has his bad impact also clear. And those who got very first the difficulty about the ecological catastrophe is, I think, also the poor people. So our concerns for the poor people and our concern for the ecological thing has to go together. I forgot the we have a very good experience about harmony in our relationship with other religions, but also, especially, I think, not the fraternity, but also the Bangkok document mentioned it about the reality in Asia. God from every religion tell us to love the other, but how can it be that there is fanaticism and also violence because of the religions? There are many causes, but what is said in the fraternity is it is often because of the politicization of religion. It is used by the politician to get to win the election. Sometimes because of the politicization of religion. So fraternity reminds us that our God do not need to be defended by us. There should not be any aggression or violence because of our God with who is love. Yeah, I think that's.
Thank you, Monsignor. And we have second session, but before you ask, I will ask another question because I also have a question. And I think this is the one I want to know your perspective, Monsignor, about the pandemic for our Buddhist people didn't teach anything else rather than only about the suffering. It is also not teach us about that we are depending toward each other. This is my perspective, and how about your enriching perspective from the Fratelli Tutti and also especially Pater Tutti?
That the people don't learn much from the pandemic. Yeah, that is true. It should be so that suffering brings many lessons for us. And so one of my friends said to me cynically that he is pessimistic about how we can learn something from the pandemic, because after the pandemic there are no so essential change in our lifestyle. What did he say? He said to me, how long was the pandemic? 2 years, yeah? 2 or 3 years. Maybe it is too short, the pandemic. Maybe we need more years so that we can learn more from the suffering. Of course, it is said cynically to his pessimistic mind that it is true. Sometimes we forget very fast about what happened to us. About what I think this is also one of the issues that the Pope said about that frequently to remind us that we have to learn from this big event, the suffering that we have passed through because of the pandemic. This is also our mission also, I think, to remind us about this this experience, not just then forget it and to live like before. Yeah, it's a challenge for us.
Thank you, Mgr. And I think this is the sign of hope for us here, that we are here gathering to speak about brotherhood or about ecological, because we want to learn something from the past, and especially from the pandemic. Okay, are there any questions? Yes, we have three. Okay, three questions to enrich our discussion. Please, okay. Mike first, because we are limited.
Limited number, right?
Limited number.
Thank you, Monsignor. I am Isidore Joseph Jawa, Capuchin brother, also Franciscan, represent East Timor. Yesterday, from the experience of our sharing, we find many challenges that make it difficult to promote human fraternity. Also, to collaborate, to contribute, to see in a better way our nature, our Mother Earth. One of the problems mentioned yesterday, for example, base case discrimination. India, I think. But the point is, in our continent, Asia, we are a small number as a Christian. And Asia continent is a continent rich with diversity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and other traditions of religion that have their own perspective about how the way they have to see man or human being, the nature. For example, I think Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti is the way Pope Francis offers us, invite us to see the earth, all creature, and human being. But in religion, they have their own way to see human, what is human. Maybe the human not equal between them. How, based on your experience, your knowledge of our continent, complexity in our continent, how we as a Christian, a Catholic, small number in this continent can contribute to deal with the diversity of anthropological view about human and also the nature, Mother Earth.
Thank you, Father. And continue to another one from you. Oh, second.
Thank you. Thank you, Father. Today I feel like gado-gado in Indonesian language. I'm happy to hear Father Sunus humility on prophetic matters. Now, hearing many explanations from the documents, Fratelli Tutti, Laudato Si, also the Asian Bishops meeting in Bangkok. All of this inspires my enthusiasm and also strengthens our vision in context of current global problems. Only with faith I believe in, and dialogue with many peoples who are there in the active on justice and peace, on violence, etc., who share the same vision and mission and focus it. We as a church certainly can to be one. healing the earth and all the creation and all the peoples, especially with the indigenous people or urban peoples in all the world. That is our problems now in this context. As a church, we must respond, like you say, wake up from these realities. Thank you.
Thank you. And the third one is sister.
Good morning, Bishop. I am Sister Erlinda of the Office of Notre Dame from the Philippines. Yesterday, in our session, we were able to name our missionary presence in our particular context coming from different countries. Today, I would like to thank you very much for leading us to once again reclaim our identity as religious through the documents that we have presented. My concern today, at the moment, is about one of the ideas that you presented regarding the role of women in the church today, in the church or in the society today. One of the statements of the Holy Father talked about the clericalism as plague in the church. I understand clericalism as true both to men and women in the church. It is also a reality among the women religious, as it is true to the clergy and men religious. My request now is for the good bishop, to lead us to some practical ways with which we are able to address this particular issue, even if we are in different contexts. Thank you very much.
The questions becomes more difficult. The first one is about discrimination based on religion, and also about the situation that we have a different context of religion in Asia, and have also different idea about different things also. My answer is also is that first is that is the importance what the Pope says in the human fraternity about the culture of dialogue and encounter. That is one of the important ways, I think. In our diversity, there is no other better way than to dialogue with them. And to cultivate the culture of encounter. We have differences, and we invite them to ask them about their opinion, what different is, before we judge them. So the cultivation of the dialogue of the culture of dialogue and culture of encounter is one of the answer, the possible answer, I think, to live in countries which have so different kinds of religions and different kinds of backgrounds. The other things is that in Asia we are really a small number, maybe except Philippines and East Timor, where the Catholic is majority. I think we have many good examples and experience in Indonesia, what I know. We are also here small number, but we have a significant presence and acknowledged by the government and also by the people from other religions. And it is, I think, because in spite of being a small number, we have many things, we have done many things good in the area of humanity. Education, humanity, education, hospitals. It is also, I think, one of the way we can learn from the history of the church in Indonesia. I think also in other parts of the Asia, but I'm not only from Indonesia. Our Institute of Education, and of course we have also many difficulties. But it is also one of the reasons that we are a small number, but our presence is acknowledged well by government and also other people from in Indonesia. In Fratelli Tutti, it speaks about the solidarity and care in real acts of life. We can see the different kind of our work in humanity as the way to dialogue with them. If we work together to help the poor, or we work together in the area of ecology with other from Muslim or different other religions, it is the good way to begin to initiate the conversation and to build the fraternity. Yeah. The third one is about the role of the woman. Very sensitive topic, yeah? In the church especially, and also about the clericalism. Yeah. Yeah. I think the answer which now is the synodals. Try to also one topic, important topic about the role of the woman. How we from the Pope himself, we see how he done some concrete. He has done some concrete things. Yeah? He promotes many women also in the important post in the Korea. Yeah, and what is discussed in the synodal process I follow, and also in the new Instrumentum Laboris, is how about we can talk together in the process of decision making. In this process, how can we listen to so different kind of people to make decision together? It is, I think, the thing we can also do in our community, that we are invited to listen, to make decision together with different kind of people, the member of our community. Every time we want to decide some things, first of all we have to listen and to make a decision together in the process. Maybe this is one of the way to fight against the clericalism. Once again, we go back to the fraternity, the culture of dialogue, the culture of encounter, the culture of make discernment before we become to some decision. It is from my limited experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let us give a big applause to our sister. And we learned a lot from his explanation, and the one that I write down here is our heart need to be full of tenderness, compassion, and concern for our fellow humans. And the Bishop reminds us that this is not only about pessimism about the future of the life, but it is also about optimism that we can do something for the better life. And sister asked about the healing the world, and we remember about heal the world, making a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. And just follow later on. Maybe we will be the song. And I remember the word from Pope Francis on the Jubilee of Hope next year. He said this way: "Space not confident, hope is not disappointed." But he said this way: "We have enough hope, but we don't have enough patience. We need to be patient to follow step by step. That we need to do one by one things to the good of the world." And the one that I learned from Bishop answer about my question, that we do not need another pandemic to teach us about the brotherhood, because this is the women meeting, also sisterhood, and about the interdependency among us each other. Thank you very much for the time, and I overhand the session to Sister Fiani. Thank you very much, and give applause for us.
Thank you so much, Mgr Sunarko. And after this, we will get tea break. The dining room is in front of the hall. But before that, we will get photo together in front of the stage. So we can place ourselves and then we can get picture together. Take a picture. Yeah. All of us. We have a good photographer that can make us can one. Take picture. Okay, please place yourself in front of the stage. Maybe there is some people behind the. I'm sorry. I forget something important. I'm sorry, please sit again. I'm sorry, something important. Maybe some people, some participant will say something about material from Mgr Sunarko. Oh yeah, my dear sister.
Sister, you already introduced myself. I'm Joy, coming as part of the religious movement from Mgr. Thank you so much, Bishop, for your input in this time. You have brought up that Navratri and fraternity, and so also that we have consecrated life for us to see and to hear once again, because even though we must have heard, but when you said it again, it really brought a fresh understanding of these things. I'm very grateful to you on behalf of our participants in this honor meeting. And some of the things I'd like to tell from Macau, the number 48, you said the ability to sit down and to listen. So that is really necessary, even thing for each one of us religious. To listen, not just listen, because sometimes when we go for a dialogue, we are here to go. We do not listen with our heart, only with our head, and what we want to emphasize on others. But this listening is really a necessary thing for all of us religious, and this you have emphasized out of ourselves, and this we were told to do the compassionate love, and I am grateful that touch. And when you brought out about the pandemic, it was the situation that made each one of us religious more aware of our inability and dependency on others. I am very grateful for bringing out that thing into our, and we being in China, we have experienced very great difficulty during the pandemic, and we went through a lot of difficulty. And can you imagine at the time, sometimes 67 of us at the same time got in our center, and it was very difficult in that. That helped me realize there are people who can help us. And you also said becoming bridges and bridge builders. So it's not only a bridge builders, but you yourself becoming a bridge is a very great demand from each one of us as a religious, and we need to give a so let us bend ourselves down and touch and heal the wounds of others. And through the education, I understand many of you are doing in the education field. Lot can be done through the education and help all those who are helping for the others in the mission, in the hospital or in caring homes. And Bishop also said about the church entrust to communities of consecrated life, the special task of spreading the spirituality of communion. So it's really a good thing that has touched me, and on behalf of the participants, I thank you for this, and the church, and what hope it has. Surely, I think so as religious, we will be able to do this to become the riches of communion for us, and to be a joyful witness, because we can be a religious anyhow, but to be a joyful witness in this world of turmoil demands from us a lot of things, and to let the things that we were speaking about, women's role in the church. For time, age is limitless time, we are going on helping the church, and let the male dominate the church, no problem, I think so. But we as a religious will continue to help the church to bring the good news to the poor and the needy. And I thank very much for you for your valuable time spending with us among 18 participants. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Sister Joyce. And there is something special for us, and I will please Monsignor in the center of our stage, and Sister Elizabeth will give something to appreciate the sign of our appreciation for your speech today, for the input, the very good input for us, and Sister Elizabeth will give something to Mgr Sunarko with Sister Joyce. Okay, please. Together, go. Yeah. And Father Joko, please take picture together with Sister Elizabeth and Sister Joyce. We have so many cameras, so. Okay, thank you, and please stay here. And all participants can take picture together with Mgr Sunarko, Father Joko, and all of us. Please place yourself in front of the stage. Maybe some people can behind the Mgr. It's okay.
Suster, punya aku nggak masuk semua.
Pakai handphone.
Oke.
Handphone itu cerita tuh. Handphone.
Please be closer one another. Yeah.
Bisa. Masuk. Apa naik? Masuk.
Okay, look at this camera. 1 and 2 and 3. You can make a sign, love sign, or something, peace. 1 and 2 and 3. Okay. Look at this. Oh. Okay, me. This. 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, we will make a video. Maybe you can wave your hand. Okay. Amor, go, go, go. Yeah. 1 and 2. Amor, go, go, go. Okay, thank you. Let's take a break. Enjoy your tea, enjoy your coffee, some snacks there. Thank you.
Suster, dapat semua.
Dapat.
Suster, nabrak kursi.
Iya.
Ngos-ngosan pergi beli baterai dulu alat tak borong sekali.
Padahal Suster Francis juga beli.